seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed your lunch. We are now ready to proceed to opening statements. The prosecution attorney may now make an opening statement. The defendant's attorney may make an opening statement, or he may wait until later in the trial to do so. What is said in the opening statement is not evidence. The opening statement is simply the attorney's opportunity to tell you what the attorney expects the evidence to show. I have informed counsel that each will be allowed 45 minutes for their opening statement, and we'll let them know when there's 3 minutes left on the opening statement. The district attorney, Mr. Macias, are you going to do the opening statement?
I am, Your Honor.
We'll go first, and I will inform you at this time that the district attorney is going to use certain exhibits that he's requesting be admitted at trial as evidence in this case as part of his opening statement. Defense counsel has stipulated to the admission of these exhibits as evidence. I will now admit State's Exhibit 55, State's Exhibit 60, State's Exhibit 61, and State's Exhibit 71D as in David. Mr. Rule, do you agree and stipulate to the admission of these 4 exhibits?
Yeah, we do, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have admitted those exhibits into evidence, and you may examine them. With these exhibits and any other exhibits that may be admitted into evidence during the trial, you should consider them in determining the facts. Just as with oral testimony, you may give any exhibit such weight and value as you think it deserves, and helping you to decide what happened in this case. Mr. Macias, you have 45 minutes. I will let you know when you have 2 minutes left.
Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to thank you for the commitment that you're going to be making to this process. Before I address you formally on what I believe the evidence will show in this case, I want you to look briefly at 2 videos. They're very short in duration, but it will help to give you a sense of the environment that we're going to be discussing throughout the trial. And if we could please play those 2 videos.
State the exhibit number, please, Mr. Macias.
That was 60, Your Honor.
All right.
Now we'll play 61.
Oh no. Oh my God. I just witnessed a murder. Everybody roll out!
Thank you, Ron. Those weren't cars backfiring. Those weren't firecrackers. Those were gunshots that you heard, and the intensity of what you heard. The tragic, undeniable fact is that 3 individuals, as a result of what you heard, Dominic Estrada, Andrew Madrid, Jason Gomez, went to a car show, went to a car meet, and never left. That killing zone resulted in not only 3 people being sent to the morgue, 14 others being wounded. I'm going to give you just a review of what the evidence is that the state is going to show. And as the judge told you, what I say to you is not evidence. It is what the state expects the evidence to be. There was a prior relationship of some kind between at least the defendant, his brother, and one of the individuals, Dominic Estrada, that was killed. What exactly it was is not clear. Nevertheless, Dominic Estrada and family members of his and friends of his had been at that car meet for a period of time. At approximately 10 o'clock that evening, Mr. Rivas, Mr. Tomas Rivas, arrives with his brother, Nathan Rivas, who is driving a red Mercedes car. They are accompanied by 2 other individuals, Mr. Ontiveros and Mr. Dominguez. Except for Mr. Rivas, who was an adult at the time, 20 years old, all of the others were under the age of 18. Mr. Dominguez was under the age of 18. The other victims, the other individuals that were shot and died as a result of it were under the age of 18. Mr. Rivas and the other 3 individuals exit the vehicle, walk down the path, a cement path, and connect with some other individuals that they know. There will be testimony that suggests that Mr. Rivas was being accompanied at that point by a small child. Witnesses will say that he took that child and returned them to some other area of that park and returned back to the other 3 and the group of individuals that they were talking with. Our witnesses will say that it was obvious that they started talking, or at least that they were pointing at where Mr. Estrada and his family were situated. Really not that far apart, but that in the course of those discussions, that Mr. Rivas and Mr. Ontiveros take out weapons, take out handguns, and basically point them at where Mr. Estrada and his family is located. All 4 individuals are armed. All 4 of the individuals, along with Mr. Rivas, have handguns. They are dressed, according to different witnesses, with what are referred to as ski masks. Maybe not the traditional ones that you put over your head and basically have room for your eyes and your nose. These are ones that cover the top of your head and come up to cover your nose. All of them, according to witnesses, are carrying fanny packs where their guns are located. There's an ongoing hand gesturing, movements, covering the handguns with their other hand, pulling them out. But certainly the testimony will be that Mr. Tomas Rivas and Mr. Ontiveros not only were the gesture of pushing them in and out, but taking them out and pointing. There's some kind of continuing exchange that is very hard to hear, but the testimony from witnesses will be that the 4, the 2 Rivas brothers, Mr. Ontiveros, Mr. Dominguez, all started closing the distance between themselves and Mr. Estrada and his party. They're still gesturing, they're still making comments, but they are the ones that start closing the gap between the 2 parties. Mr. Estrada has made some comments, or at least there's an understanding by some of his family members, that the Rivas brothers, who they know and they can identify, are here to get him. There will be testimony saying that it was overheard, that they said, "Get Dom," or "We're here to get Dom," which is what Dominic Estrada's name was, or name that was utilized by people who knew him. That during that approaching, an individual who is connected through family or through his significant other by the name of Ruben Morales. He basically goes around the 4 as they're advancing. He doesn't really know them. He thinks he might know them, but he doesn't know them. He goes around to the one closest, which is going to be Gustavo Dominguez. And he wraps him up. And you'll hear different descriptions of what he did. But his testimony is that he wrapped one around like what would be referred to as a bear hug. A struggle starts occurring. He is not armed. There's no question about it. He is unarmed. He's larger than the individual that he wraps up. That you're going to hear some testimony that that wasn't a bear hug, it was a chokehold. Although in theory a chokehold would be a different kind of maneuver around the neck. But part of it, according to Mr. Morales, is that Gustavo Dominguez, one of the 4 that were advancing on the party, was struggling and dropped, and his arms went up to his neck. You will hear testimony that during that struggle, Mr. Dominguez has a weapon. He has already shown the weapon. They know he has a weapon. It's either in the fanny pack or in his belt line. According to one of the witnesses that you will hear from, he pulls that gun out, shoots. The individual that he shoots, Mr. Zuniga, is a brother to Mr. Estrada. Shoots him in the stomach. That individual falls to the ground. That is supposed to have been the first shot. But you will hear from Mr. Morales that perhaps simultaneous, because he didn't see that shot, simultaneous is that Mr. Ontiveros, one of the four, comes up directly to him as he is struggling with Mr. Dominguez, puts his gun up to Mr. Morales' head, and then lowers it and shoots him in the buttocks. From there, Mr. Morales, and I know that there'll be a number of names that you'll have to be acquainted with, backs away. Mr. Dominguez, that he's had in this struggle, turns, either just putting his gun behind him or turns directly facing him and shoots him 3 times in the chest. And at that point, all of these other shots are coming in from the others, because Mr. Morales has 13 bullet wounds. He's unarmed. Big, we can see, tall, we can see that, but unarmed. He goes to the ground. All of a sudden, there's all kinds of gunshots. And let me show you, because this truly is a killing zone. Let me show you this other,
Exhibit number?
the exhibit number would be 55. I know that this, 71D, forgive me.
1D,
Yes, sir. Now these yellow markers, that's what they are. I know that they're a little bit hard to see on the screen, but these yellow markers are basically where the shell casings are found. There are 60 bullets that were shot by these 4 individuals. Mr. Dominguez shot. He had a gun, he had his gun out, or pulled it out. He shot 7 times. The 4 shot 60. He shot 7, hit no one. You will hear testimony that Mr. Dominguez, Mr. Estrada, is trying to avoid or evade the 4 individuals that are shooting at him. And that he is crouched over and basically with his gun underneath, shooting, and running to a tree to take cover. And in the meantime, while he's doing that, we know he is shot at least 3 times. But it incapacitates him because he's there on the floor. He has run up to an individual who is also hiding behind the tree, just a spectator. Nothing to do with either of the groups. Trying to hide because he has told his son to run, and because he's a little bit older, he doesn't feel he can run away, that it would be safe, so he's hiding behind the tree. Mr. Estrada, Dominic Estrada, falls to his feet, wraps his arms around his legs. He tries to pick him up to help him, and is shot, and is hit. And he is hit, I believe, at least 7 times by bullets. Nothing to do with it. The next exhibit which is 55. I'm not sure, can we zoom were standing watching the car show. You can see that they're clustered. You can see where the donuts in the video, in the dark tire markings that are just right above it. Well, if you're looking at the screen, these four individuals, including Mr. Rivas, are off to the left. They are shooting in that direction, trying to get to Mr. Estrada, who has fallen by that tree where you can see it. It's kind of where the markings I and G are. One of the other victims is number B, Andrew Madrid. And he is there to see a car show. He is a student. He has nothing to do with anything. He is struck by a bullet. It goes into his back and then out through his stomach. He makes his way because, as you can see, as soon as the crowd of maybe somewhere between 100 and 200 individuals are running, are fleeing from the scene, and where does he end up? He runs to his vehicle, which is marked again by another B at the very bottom of the exhibit that's circled in red. He dies there. We're not absolutely sure where Mr. Jason Gomez was because he was there absolutely by himself. But he was in the cluster and did something similar to Mr. Madrid, ran towards his vehicle, which is marked as M, was able to open the door, but died there because he bled out as well. He was found later, and yes, he had a gun. No one's going to claim that he fired it, because it wasn't fired. It was on his person. But again, those are the three individuals who died because of this intense firing, this desire to kill Dominic Estrada. These individuals died because of the lack of restraint, the negligence of these four individuals. The individuals, the four that we claim, are shooting and creating. Mr. Rivas is a creator of the chaos that occurred. They run back to the red Mercedes that they came in. You'll see videos showing them running back. They got in that vehicle. They drove to El Paso. They fled the area. They went to El Paso. And our evidence will show that they did that in order to try to fabricate a story that they were never there, that they were in El Paso during all this time. Evidence is going to show you that Mr. Rivas and his brother were caught trying to dispose of the weapons that they used. And with Mr. Nathan Rivas, he actually was trying to dispose of guns that weren't, at least as far as law enforcement knows, weren't used that evening. But because of the good work of the FBI and the Las Cruces Police Department, they had their areas under surveillance. And they caught Mr. Nathan Rivas disposing in a trash can, and Mr. Tomas Rivas disposing of a red and black jacket that he wore and is very prominent in the videos, along with weapons that he had used. They were taken into custody. Mr. Rivas was given his, as you know, your rights, your Miranda warning rights. He told the detectives that were interviewing him, including FBI agents, I was never there. After a while, and being talked to and shown, he changed the story. But he lied. He lied that he was ever there. Then the story evolved into, well, I was there, but I didn't have a gun. Another lie. Then he changed the story. I was there, yes, I had a gun, but I never shot. Another lie. Because the evidence that you are going to be shown, the gun that was found, that had Mr. Rivas's DNA, and this was sent to, of course, the crime lab. All of the scientific methods of making that determination will be presented to you as evidence. What is going to be presented to you are that there were 17 casings, 17, that were found on the ground where Mr. Rivas can be seen shooting a weapon, shooting a handgun. 17 bullets is what Mr. Rivas contributed to this chaos, at least that. It was their intent to harm, to kill. You do not shoot at people, and even if you don't shoot the bullet that maybe can be defined as the bullet that killed the individual. Because in this case, Mr. Rivas didn't give the killing shot. What you're going to hear is that I believe that there was a wound to Mr. Estrada in the arm, a wound in the leg, and he was shot in the scrotum that basically made its way up into the stomach. But Mr. Estrada was completely laid out on the ground, no longer engaged in any kind of shooting. When Mr. Ontiveros, the youngest of the group, comes up, and again, it will be shown to you on video, and basically shoots Mr. Estrada in the head. They came to kill him. They came to confront him. For whatever the reason might have been, their goal of killing Dominic Estrada was accomplished. But in the meantime, their actions, only their actions, killed two other individuals who had nothing to do with it. All of this evidence will be presented to you. All of the information that will support their attempts to deceive everyone in terms of their role in this action. But the evidence will prove everything that I've just discussed with you. It'll come, yes, from a variety of different individuals. Yes, is it going to come from some of Mr. Estrada's family members? Yes, because they were there. They saw it. But I'm asking that you take into consideration the chaos, because not everything will match up. Not everything will happen the same way. I saw something different. That's what I remember. So you are going to hear that there are some inconsistencies in the story. But the volume of the evidence will coincide with what I have discussed with you. After all of the evidence is presented, the judge will read you the instructions after you have heard everything. And really the question that is posed to you is, did Tomas Rivas, is he responsible? And have we proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he killed Dominic Estrada, that his actions were responsible for the deaths of Andrew Madrid and Jason Gomez? That one question will be asked of you. Has the state proven his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? And I ask that you answer yes. That completes my.
Thank you, Mr. Macias.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Counsel, you have 45 minutes. I'll let you know when you have 2 minutes left.
Good afternoon, folks. Thanks for being here. Didn't have much of a choice, I suppose. The judge hit the nail on the head when he said that these statements are not evidence. This is kind of both sides' attempts at a highlight reel, the play-by-play, what to expect, what you should look for, what to pay attention to, what we feel is important, what's going to help you make the appropriate decision. To that end, at the conclusion of this thing, you're going to get jury instructions. And the jury instructions are your guide through to this. They've got elements in them. And you're going to have to rectify that, juxtapose that with everything that you hear over the next couple of days. And what you hear over the next couple of days is going to have to jive with what's in the jury instructions for you to render a verdict, for you to make a decision. So, you all saw the video. That was a very bad thing. It was absolute chaos. We're not trying to skirt around it. People died. People were murdered. It is horrible. My client, Tomas Rivas, did not murder anyone. And there is a wealth of scientific evidence that supports that. You're going to hear from several law enforcement officers throughout the duration of this trial. And I'd ask you to pay particular attention to an overwhelming sense of these law enforcement officers' satisfaction that they had cracked the case wide open within about 20 minutes. They got their guy. Who done it? Tomas Rivas. And you're going to see a lot of holes moving forward from there. Simply put, resting on their laurels, as it were. I'd like you to remember the who, what, when, where, why questions, and how. Ask yourself those throughout this thing. And there's got to be a bunch of scientific evidence. You're going to hear from lay witnesses. You're going to hear from cops. You're going to hear from medical experts, and they're going to paint a picture that corroborates that absolute chaos that you saw in this video. Something that the district attorney pointed out, that there were 60 some odd shell casings in the vicinity there. What was not pointed out was that there are north of 100 shell casings in this event. I mean, that's north of 100 people, north of 100 bullets being fired in one form or fashion. So to that end, you're going to be seeing quite a lot of there's going to be quite a lot of information coming your way over the next couple days. It's going to be a lot to take in. You take it one step at a time. You're going to be aided by these videos and the illustrations. They're going to be a tremendous amount of work went into these illustrations as well to give you a picture of what happened to the scene and where these shell casings were located. And you're going to hear from the individual that created them, and it's quite instructive for you to analyze all this. So you're going to hear about these two groups of folks. Both of these groups were armed. To that end, you're going to hear some testimony about self-defense and what is required for that to apply. And you'll be more than likely instructed on that, and it's going to be helpful in aiding you to take the concept of self-defense and insert it into this situation, into this chaotic situation. What this is not is a referendum on gun violence. That is a more philosophical, larger question to be discussed outside the confines of this courtroom. What we're looking at here is whether or not, Tomas Rivas can be found guilty of murder. And to that end, during the investigation of this, the defense's, a lot of evidence was ignored and kind of shrugged aside for the sake of making a square peg fitted around holes. You've got a puzzle with 1,000 pieces, and you're missing 200 of them. And that doesn't make your all's job any easier, but there is going to be some science that's going to help you along. I can't stress this enough, that the scene was absolute chaos. But it's been reconstructed by thorough investigation. And there's going to be a wealth of this scientific evidence that is legitimate science that you can rely on, that will help aid in your decision. So, to that end, at the close of this case, these jury instructions are going to come down the pike, and they read kind of like PCR instructions. I mean, it's not, I've been doing this for a while, and I still have a hard time with them. So, take your time. Do their best to lay them out, in an element type fashion, so you can say, okay, does number one apply to this scenario? Yay, nay, maybe, who knows? But they do serve as the most efficient and best roadmap that we can give you when deciding this case. And you take these instructions, you apply them to the facts, you apply them to the science, and the outcome will be the truth. And the truth is an acquittal for Mr. Tomas Rivas. With that, I think I'm going to leave you, and we will commence with the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can see his colleagues.
Your Honor, the state calls Joseph Montoya.
Montoya, come forward, please. Come towards me. This way, sir. examine your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do just want to note to the jury that I'm not accustomed to keeping my back to a jury, but the way we're structured here, I don't think that there's another option. And I apologize, but we can see the witness on the screen. For the record, would you please begin this afternoon by giving us your name and the spelling of your last name?
Officer Joseph Montoya, Montoya.
How are you currently employed?
With the Las Cruces Police Department
What is
on
your
graveyard.
All right. Is that meant for us to feel sorry for you?
No, sir.
So what is your badge number?
944.
And were you working in an official capacity on the 21st of March of 2025?
Yes, sir.
Can you relate to me what were your responsibilities or what you were engaged in approximately 10 o'clock that evening?
So I was actively on a traffic stop when I heard a call come in at 1905 Nevada Youngs Park for multiple gunshot victims. That's when I responded to this call.
All right. And what were your actions when, did you go to Youngs Park?
Yes, sir.
And what were your actions as you arrived there?
When I got there, I went to assist an officer who was in the southwest corner of the parking lot, who was one of the gunshot victims. He asked for a medical pack. I provided it to him. And as I was doing that, I was flagged down by a group of people who stated there was another gunshot victim in the center of the parking lot.
All right. So in terms of the first gunshot victim that you, or the individual that had been shot, did you discover who that individual was?
The one with the first officer, or
Yes.
the one that I was flagged down with?
No, the first individual that you went to assist.
I did not identify them.
I see. All right, and then so the second one, did you identify that individual?
The second one I was not able to identify because as I was standing by with him, I was flagged down by the fire department who advised there was another gunshot victim on the southeast corner inside a vehicle.
All right. So let me see which exhibit so that you can look at it, so that you can describe your actions a little bit more effectively. It would be Let me show you what is marked as State's Exhibit 55 that has already been introduced into evidence. Will you just describe it, not the markings on it, but will you describe it as a picture of what?
Looks like an overview of the parking lot itself.
All right. And let me see if we still have that electronically to bring it back onto the screen. All right, so this is an exhibit that was introduced earlier. You're indicating that you, when you arrived at Youngs Park, that you were going to assist another officer
Yes, sir.
with someone who had been shot.
Yes.
Where on this screen,
The initial one was around, I would say, where it's marked with the letter A.
with the letter A?
Yes.
All right. And so where were you as you were you intercepted by another individual?
Around the same area where the letter A is, a group of people came and flagged me down and directed me to where it is marked with the letter M. And they advised me that there was another individual who had a gunshot wound.
All right. And what was your role or your actions related to this individual that you had understood had been shot?
When I arrived to where the marking of letter M is, I started placing my gloves. It looked like the male was not breathing. Once my gloves were on, I checked his pulse. I felt him gas. Because I didn't have my medical pack, I started flagging down the fire department who was arriving on scene. While I was waiting for them, I was looking at the male, where I noticed that there was an object in his pocket, which I could identify because it was sticking out by the handle. It looked to be a handgun.
All right, and what did you do with that handgun?
So I advised the supervisor who was on scene, let him know that they were planning on transporting this individual. So I removed the handgun from his left pocket. It was a tannin colored handgun, and I took it over to where my unit was, which is a little further east from the spot F marked on here, where it was secured. I unloaded the magazine, removed the round that was chambered, and secured it in my lockbox.
What else did you do related to that individual, if anything?
From there, when I returned, the fire department had begun CPR. I was standing by with them while they were doing that, and around the time that they pronounced the male deceased, I was flagged down by the fire department again, where I was directed to where it is marked the letter B, where another gunshot victim was located inside a black truck, and the fire department removed him, and I began to assist in trying to identify the male.
All right, did you attempt to assist him physically, medically?
No, sir.
But you, were you the first one to have contact with that individual that was in the vehicle?
No, sir. The fire department was already there and already actively pulling him out when I was arriving there.
I see. So let me show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 36, and I will show it to Defense Counsel. And I believe that there has been a stipulation for its admission, but Officer,
State's Exhibit 36.
36.
That is. You agree to its admission as evidence?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 36 will be admitted. You can publish it to the jury and the witness.
Thank you. I'll read it to the witness. All right. Officer Montoya, would you please describe what is shown in State's Exhibit number 36?
It looks to be the driver's seat of where the gunshot victim that was located in the black truck was found. He was sitting there, and that's where the fire department removed him from.
And what is different about this seat from a regular seat that you would see?
It looks to be slightly stained with blood on the center and the left portion of the seat.
And do you remember observing it in this condition?
Yes.
Thank you. Officer Montoya, did you have any other role that evening in terms of either the investigation or assisting anyone else?
No, sir. I stood by with the male who was pronounced deceased in the black truck, and then at the end, when the evidence technicians arrived, the firearm was turned over to them.
Again, were you able to determine whether or not that firearm had been fired?
I was not.
Okay. Nor was that your responsibility?
No, sir.
I don't believe I have any further questions, so I'll pass the witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Move.
Good afternoon, Officer Montoya.
Okay.
So were you the first law enforcement on the scene?
No, sir.
No. Somebody else made it there before you?
Yes, sir.
Do you know who?
I'm not sure who exactly it was.
So you attended to the individual that was in denoted in the exhibit in vehicle M, is that correct?
The black truck?
Yeah, was that the M, I believe?
I believe it was.
Is there any way for you to shot in the truck, or had he been shot elsewhere and returned to the truck?
I do not recall, sir.
There's no way for you to tell that, right?
No,
Okay. How about the individual in the deceased in B?
the one towards the center of the park.
Yeah.
So I know he had an injury, it looked to, I believe it was one of his limbs, and the fire department mentioned that he had an injury to the back of his head, but I'm not sure if it was a gunshot wound or not.
Okay, so I think you're talking about Dominic Estrada there, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so we know where ostensibly the area where he had been shot, the location.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But B was a different individual that you testified that you checked on as well?
On the southwest fork?
Yes.
Yes, sir, it was a different individual who was already being tended by another officer.
Okay. And there's no way for you to testify as to where this individual had been shot?
No, sir.
So EMS shows up at this point and kind of takes over the aid in, render aid to the folks, is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And what are your duties from there?
From when they started rendering aid to the first person,
When EMS takes over, you start policing, is that an accurate?
so once the fire department took over, I remained there with them, so no one would mess with the scene and their equipment. And I also spoke to a witness while I was standing by with the first individual.
Okay. But your job at this point is to, you've still got a hot seat, right? I mean, you don't know what's happening here. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So you're on high alert, keeping an eye out for nefarious activity, is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you begin to do any investigation, or are you just securing the perimeter? What's happening?
So when the fire department checked on the first individual where the handgun was located on him, once they took over, there was a bystander that I spoke to, and she gave a brief description of what she had seen.
What'd she tell you?
She said that she saw I can't recall the color of Mustang doing donuts in the parking lot. She said that it had struck one of the bystanders. After striking one of the bystanders, she saw 3 individuals get out of an unknown make and model vehicle. One wearing a black mask with a black hoodie, the other one with curly hair, and she described 2 out of the 3 to have handguns and one having what she described to be an AK-47.
Is that the only person you interacted with at this scene?
At this point, yes. After making contact with the individual who was located in the black and colored truck, I did speak to the families who had arrived and got their information, and that's how I was able to identify the male who was found deceased in the black truck.
Okay. And did you search any other automobiles?
No, sir.
Did you search anyone? Any individual?
The only person that I removed an item from was the individual who was laying, the one that I described hand towards the center of the park.
Okay. And did you have any interaction with an Angel Rivera?
Not that I can recall.
No, just a moment, Judge.
You may.
Nothing further, John.
You directed this witness?
Your Honor, I have no redirect. May this witness be excused if the jury has no questions?
You wish to permanently excuse the juror.
Yes, Your Honor, if we may.
Mr. Rule,
No objection, John.
without objection, you're permanently excused. That means you're relieved of your obligations to the court.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness.
Your Honor, may we approach?
You sure may. Ladies and gentlemen, the attorneys will approach the bench so that we may discuss some matters out of your hearing. It is the attorney's duty to offer evidence they believe proper and to object to evidence they believe improper. It's my duty to decide what evidence finally will be admitted for your consideration. It may be necessary for us to confer about this or other matters from time to time. You must not speculate on what we are discussing. I gave this instruction to a jury about 6 months ago, and they had bonded about the 3rd day of trial. and they were so excited about talking to each other that I couldn't hear the lawyers. So I will instruct you, once you get to know each other, which you will, I guarantee you, keep it down for me, okay? All right? We will. Gentlemen, you are back on the record. I don't like talking to myself when I can't hear. We've got some equipment set up before we present the next witness, so we'll take a 10-minute recess to give the prosecution an opportunity to set up equipment for you. We'll move it along quite rapidly, thank you. So I'm encouraged, so be happy, and we will see you in 10 minutes. Please stand for this, jury. Recess for 10 minutes. You got it.
All right.
Lieutenant Bradley,
I am, Your Honor.
the witness seat, I'll have you sit there. And when folks may sit down while we're waiting. And when the jury comes in, you call the next witness, and the name, and one of them is ready to go. Folks, do you need more than 10 minutes to let the court know before you decide to appoint yourself to take the next?
Yes,
Understood? Where's your,
he's coming in right now.
okay. You ready, stay ready?
State's ready, Your Honor.
Ben's ready?
We're ready, Your Honor.
Bring in the jury. And you are?
Craig Martin.
Sorry?
Craig Martin.
Craig, are you the expert?
He is, Your Honor.
Okay, well, we have one in the restroom. They should be, I should have said something.
Well, they just told me during the spring.
No. Put the witness on this one. And the evidence is there. It's the witness that you wait and see. Okay.
Your Honor, may I address the court?
It's my turn now, first. I've been informed by the bailiff that the jury waited till they went back into the jury room to say that they're having a hard time seeing the witness. So we were going to put the witness on one screen and the evidence on the other. You can do that, right, George, right? And we're going to put the witness up here because they're more interested than they are in the exhibit. Any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
None, sir.
Do we need to bring the witness back and go over it again, or do you think that they just said they had a hard time, that didn't say whether they could hear the witness, I don't know if they needed to see it.
And Judge, most of our exhibits will be out through this witness, and so I think that moving forward is appropriate. I defer to defense.
Judge, I don't have an objection. I don't think the first officer was substantial enough to bring him back.
All right, thank you. Well, we'll see.
Please rise for the jury.
No, you did it again. Well, at least we know who it is. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Taylor told me that you were having a little trouble seeing the witness, is that right? Don't be so nice. Raise your hand and say, Judge, I can't see the guy. Okay? I'm not shy, so don't you be shy. And my responsibility is to make sure that you hear and see all of the evidence occur in the case. So if there is any difficulty whatsoever, if you can't hear them, if somebody's mumbling, raise your hand and tell the bailiff, I can't hear him, or I can't see him. So what we think will work, subject to your approval, is to put the witness on this screen so you can see it, and the exhibit on this screen so you can look at it. If you want, you'll be able to see the exhibit at a future time. Of course, we want you to have it while the exhibit is being discussed, but it's not as critical as you being able to see and observe the witness. Because as you know, my instruction says it's up to you to determine the credibility of the witnesses and the weight to give to their testimony of each of them. So it's critical that you see the witness while it's there to see, and then you can go over the exhibit at your leisure when you're deliberating. Is that clear? Anybody else need instruction in saying, Judge? All at once say, Judge. Judge. There you go. Now if I hear that, I'll just leave the room and take a recess. If somebody follows my instructions like that, then I get nervous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your assistance. We were able to provide the necessary relief to the state. Is that correct, Mr. Wilson?
It is, Your Honor.
And now we're ready for the next witness. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Lieutenant Sheriff Bradley.
Sir, if you stand up, walk towards me, and raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Penalty of law.
I do, Your Honor.
Have a seat. One other housekeeping for your consideration. I don't know how observant you are, but there's a new creature at the fence table. So, and he's sitting at the end there, sort of slightly absent hair. That person is Craig Martin, and he is an expert for the defense. And as I told you earlier, the expert is entitled to be present in the courtroom throughout the proceedings. Regular witnesses excluded, but the expert witness and the case agent, and Lieutenant Bradley is a case agent. So if you say, well, I thought they excluded these witnesses, no, those folks are allowed to remain throughout the trial. With that, you may inquire of your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Peter James Bradley, Jr.
Thank you. And how are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Las Cruces Police Department.
In what capacity?
I'm a lieutenant overseeing the Criminal Investigations Division.
And how long have you held that position?
I've been assigned to CID for 5 years now.
And what is CID?
That is the Criminal Investigations Division. It encompasses the Intel section, the Real-Time Crime Center, the Crime Scene Unit, and the Criminal Investigations Section, or detectives is what we refer to them as.
And who is in charge or the head of that entire division?
So I'm in charge of the entire division, and I answer to a deputy chief.
And so would you, for the jury, just for those testing, for those of the jury who don't know, can you explain kind of the hierarchy within Las Cruces Police Department?
Of Of course, sir. So the hierarchy within the police department is, of course, your chief of police. Then there are 2 deputy chiefs, 1 deputy chief over operations, the other deputy chief under investigation and support services. So he oversees the Metro Narcotics Unit, oversees the CID, he oversees the civilian staff. And then after that, you have lieutenants in charge of either shifts or sections. I'm the lieutenant in charge of the Criminal Investigations Division. I have 4 sergeants assigned to me, and I am allotted 20 detectives in CIS specifically.
Whom you supervise over?
Yes.
So please, Lieutenant, tell us how you got involved in this specific case.
So specifically on this case, I received a phone call that evening from Lieutenant Porras. Lieutenant Porras is the shift lieutenant who was working that evening. He called to advise me that they had a large shooting at Young Park, that they had multiple people that had been shot, and at least 1 at the time that had been found deceased and potentially more.
And can you, if you know, can you tell us approximately where Young Park is located?
1905 Nevada, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, in the county of Doñana.
Thank you. So once you received that information, what was your initial reaction? What were your first steps?
Based off the information I was getting from Lieutenant Porras, I knew I was going to need about every detective I could get my hands on. So I put out a group text message advising of what the situation was, telling everybody what was going on. The information I had received from Lieutenant Porras is that the scene was not secure yet. So I also advised all of my personnel to make sure they had their body armor and necessary equipment with them.
And what is a secure scene versus a non-secure scene?
So basically, almost every time a detective is called out to a scene to investigate, the scene is secure, meaning there are no threats, there are no unknowns except for the crime itself. Everything is secure, we know who everybody is, where everybody is, and the detectives go to investigate that actual incident, try to determine suspects. An unsecure scene means we don't know if there are threats still within that park.
And your testimony today was that at the time of responding, this was an unsecure scene?
Yes.
Okay, please continue.
After I put out that message, I made my way to Young Park. I was the first person from the division to arrive. I got my necessary equipment on and began trying to find Lieutenant Porras, who was in charge of the scene, to figure out what was happening and gather any more information that I couldn't get over the phone.
And after that, what were your next steps?
From there, I was advised that there was potentially somebody running in the park, that they had teams that were trying to search the park, that there were multiple individuals that had been injured, and that they just found another individual inside a black Toyota Tundra that was being worked on at that time.
And please tell the jury all the information that you gathered that specific night. I know this, well, first let me ask you, was this investigation started and concluded that night of the incident?
No, it was not.
Approximately how long, well, track that, you're right. Okay, so I just want to focus on that night for right now. So please tell the jury the steps towards the investigation you took and the information learned therein that specific night.
So, like I was saying, as soon as I started getting detectives arriving on scene, and I was gathering from the lieutenants on scene where potential witnesses were and individuals that had been outlined, I started sending detectives to try to interview individuals. I assisted Detective Contreras when he went to interview an individual that was on scene. I also started getting a list of the hospitals in which our victims were going to, and started trying to coordinate detectives not to arrive on scene because while it was a very large, very chaotic scene, I needed to find out what happened from the witnesses and the individuals who were shot that had fled that scene. So I started coordinating with detectives I had to both go to local hospitals, but also because several of the victims were being flown to El Paso, I coordinated with detectives that lived in the area to try to get to those hospitals to interview as well.
Is it fair to say that the Las Cruces Police Department utilized basically all of their resources for this case?
Yes.
Okay.
Of my detectives, the only 2 that did not assist, or I'm sorry, there were 3 detectives of everyone assigned to me that did not assist. 1 was on vacation in Florida, and the other 2 were on vacation in Albuquerque.
Thank you. Okay, so you ensured that statements were being taken from potential witnesses. You instructed to for your officers to try to secure the scene. What else did you do in leading this, or helping to lead this investigation?
Once I started figuring out what resources I had where, I started getting phone calls from additional resources that were coming to help. So I started coordinating with agents with the FBI, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. New Mexico State Police reached out and requested the crime scene unit to help process the scene, as well as my own crime scene unit I had arrive. We received phone calls from the Doña Ana County Sheriff's Department, and what I started doing is coordinating all of the incoming resources and getting them into places where they could be of assistance.
And what's procedure on that? What leads you to those decisions? What plays a part in that strategy?
So procedure-wise, we don't really have a procedure specifically for something like this because we've never experienced anything like this. As a supervisor, it's my job to try to ensure that we do a thorough and complete investigation. And so what I was trying to do was get as many resources into areas so that we didn't lose potential evidence. We didn't lose potential statements, and we were able to interview potential witnesses that we could find.
And so you testified that there was no procedure for something like this because something like this had never happened before?
Yes, sir.
What next steps did you take, if any, that specific night?
That specific night, I had an influx of supervisors from both the FBI and ATF that arrived as well. We'd already sent agents to help with interviews, but I needed the manpower, so I had all of those supervisors, regional agents in charge, things like that. I had them stand on scene to assist us in a line search. The scene was very large, so what we effectively did is we spread out all of our manpower within 10 feet of each other, and then another, and then 10 feet, and then another, and we walked together in a line with flashlights and marking evidence. It was very dark, but what we wanted to make sure we did was try to mark as much as we possibly could. In the event the weather changed or something happened, we didn't want to try to lose evidence.
And so can you explain to the jury, why would you put a marker down, and the process for which your team on this night utilized the markers and your system therein?
So that evening, the markers were put down as what we refer to as temporary markers. What we do is we use white business cards and we kind of fold them in half to make a kind of a triangle like this. And then we set those down near the area of potential evidence. And what we were trying to mark was everything that could potentially be evidence. So if we found projectiles, if we found shell casings, if we found what we believed to be blood, we marked those, but we also marked beer bottles, we marked Gatorade bottles, we marked anything that we thought potentially could be evidence or would be needed.
And was that portion, the marking of, or the temporary exhibits, how long did it take to put all those markers down?
I would say the parking lot alone probably took at least an hour, if not an hour and a half. After the parking lot, then we moved into the park, and then we tried to mark as much as we could there. At the pond, unfortunately, the pond was full of water, so we had to coordinate to have a dive team come in later and actually dive the pond and make sure there was nothing thrown in the water.
Were there any other areas that you put markers down?
So we put markers down throughout the parking lot, and then in the easternmost end of the park, near where the bathrooms are and the grass.
So who would come in and replace the temporary markers with the actual markers?
Once the temporary markers were put in, the crime scene unit went back in during daylight where they could see a little bit better to place not only the physical plastic markers that you see, but also to ensure that we didn't miss anything.
And were the more permanent markers, were they all the same color?
No, they were all very different colors. We tried to make a color scheme to match what evidence we had. We tried to use yellow to indicate shell casings, pinkish red to try to indicate what we believe to be blood, green to indicate other objects. The problem was we just started running out of markers.
And so what did you do at that time?
We ended up having to do an assortment of markers, so we have some that were yellow markers, some that were large markers, some that were just regular markers numbered. We ran out of how we were going to mark things. We even had to borrow some from state police when they arrived.
Let me ask you, Lieutenant, is it typical for a scene to have so many potential areas of evidence or pieces of evidence that you run out of markers?
This was the first time I've seen that happen.
And how long have you been on the force?
I've been a police officer for just south of 18 and a half years.
Thank you. Does that cover that first night, or was there something else that you were involved with that night?
That covers most of that night into the morning, early morning hours. From there, I went to the police department to get with Detective Contreras, who was also the detective funneling and getting a lot of the information as far as statements were, ensuring that he had the information that he was needing, getting a brief as to what he had learned from the other detectives doing interviews. And then I charged my phone for about 20 minutes, got a nap on my couch, and then we proceeded to continue working.
And when you continued working, what did you do?
I went back over some warrants that were being drafted. I checked to see if there were any other information. I made sure my detectives were okay. Reached out to all my other detectives that were on scene, ensuring that they were where they needed to be, that we weren't dropping anything through the cracks, or at least trying to avoid anything slipping through the cracks. I checked on my crime scene unit that was standing by waiting for first lights to start processing, and then I was notified that I would need to go to a press conference in the morning, so I went home and got a suit.
And did you, along with the rest of Las Cruces Police Department, give a statement at that point?
Yes, I stood by with the chief. A statement was given as far as what the information was that we had that evening. From there, I went back to the police department, changed again, spoke with another sergeant that had come in, and found out what the status was on potential suspects and surveillance that was being done.
And what evidence, if any, what yielded from that conversation?
So I learned about a search warrant that was going to be done at a residence on Renfro, and I learned why that was being done. I also learned that there were several videos that had been entered that we needed to start processing and looking through. Because of the amount of citizens that we had, I also went ahead and opened a public portal. Basically, it's a QR code. I don't know if people remember it, but it was a QR code that would allow you to scan it on your phone. And if you had videos of that event, you could submit the videos to the police department so that we could review them.
And approximately how many submissions did you get through this link?
We got thousands of submissions. Most of them were not unique pieces of evidence. Most of them were screen recordings from Instagram or from other social media, and they were the same ones. However, we did get several unique pieces of evidence.
And did you go through each and every one of these thousands of videos?
I did.
What next steps did you take?
Once we were done with the videos, I went through and processed them to the best of my ability. Zooming in, viewing the videos, we were able to identify some suspects that were identified through other means of the investigation, as well as we were starting to be able to confirm certain parts of statements that had been given by witnesses.
And did that yield any information?
It did. It confirmed several things that we were seeing. We were able to see multiple subjects. We were able to identify our suspects being Tomas Rivas, Nathan Rivas, Jose Altaveros, and Gustavo Dominguez with firearms. We were able to see where they were at the park, the vehicle that they were in, and which direction they had fled.
Early on in the investigation, were there any other individuals of interest, I'll say, that you found that you, well, first of all, we'll just keep it at that the public brought to your attention?
So it wasn't necessarily early on. It was in the same time that we were investigating or looking into the Rivases and Altaveros and Dominguez. We also received information of another individual who had a .22 caliber AR-15. He was very prominent in a lot of social media. We started working on tracking that individual down. I sent another detective to figure out who this individual was and started interviewing him.
Okay, and without saying what he said, what was the result of that interview?
The result was we confirmed it was a .22 caliber rifle, which was not consistent with the vast majority of shell casings that were found on scene. And I learned that that individual was exonerated from being involved in the shooting.
And did you learn the purpose of that rifle that night?
So what they were utilizing things like that for, as completely reckless as it sounds, is they were using the weapon-mounted lights, which have a strobe function, or a laser, or both, and they were activating them to enhance the view of the smoke of the tires during the burnouts.
So the individual was using the rifle's light on the scope to illuminate the smoke coming off of the burnouts.
So it was not necessarily the scope, it was the weapon-mounted light underneath the barrel that he was using to illuminate, along with like lasers and things like to make the smoke from the burnouts look more dramatic.
What next steps did you take to further this investigation?
So after I went through with the videos and relayed those both to the detective who had done the charging documents, I ensured and coordinated that we were getting interviews done. I made sure that everybody was involved with, or that we had detectives and federal partners doing the interviews. From there, again, I got a little bit more sleep. I ended up assisting in the apprehension of another individual that we believe was potentially going to be involved and was not. From there, we continued to go back and coordinate both with our partners with Metro Narcotics and federal partners who are doing surveillance on our last outstanding suspect.
So this wasn't just LCPD, this was a joint operation for multiple agencies?
Yes, as I stated before, we had agents from the FBI, we had agents from alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, we had Metro Narcotics agents, which are narcotics enforcement, undercover officers assisting, and then we had LCPD, and we had New Mexico State Police assisting on the crime scene process.
Thank you. What was your next involvement in this case?
After my next involvement, I stood by to just supervise. I didn't take an active role anymore. I continued to supervise until Sunday evening, which was when I finally went home.
Which, do you recall the date of that Sunday would have been?
This happened Friday the 23rd, so it would have been the 25th.
Or the,
Sorry.
was it the 21st?
No, I'm sorry, it was the 21st. We got the video on the 23rd. So it would have been the evening of the 23rd that I finally was able to get home.
So from the 21st to the 23rd, you were just working on this case?
Yes, from the 21st to the 23rd, myself, along with most of our detectives, were at the police department working.
Which brings us to what would have been the 22nd or the day after the incident. When the sun was rising, were there lab techs part of the investigation who photographed the markers that we have already talked about?
Yes, our crime scene unit, along with New Mexico State Police, did a laser scan of the scene. Our technicians photographed and collected all the evidence.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Could I interrupt and ask that we be able to approach?
You may? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're exhausted with this witness's testimony. Just kidding. We have an issue to take up with outside your presence, and we'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it's come to my my attention that someone has a cell phone that they're recording and posting on Facebook. I would suggest to avoid even more serious ramifications that that person stand up and turn over the cell phone to this court. Did you hear me? All right, then we'll conduct a search of every person in this room. Yes. Who? Security. And we'll do it in an orderly manner. Row by row.
And Your Honor, can I address you?
You may.
There are members of the media here. I'm not sure that it's absolutely a cell phone.
I don't know, is it a cell phone? Is the media, is somebody putting this on Facebook from the media?
No, sir.
No, sir.
I don't know, Mr. Macias, what's the source of your information?
Let me bring the, our victim advocate supervisor back in.
Come on in.
Are you live streaming it on Facebook? That's what I'm being told. Why would you be posting it on Facebook?
May we approach the bench again?
You may. We need to continue the search. Okay. And it was a misunderstanding, but we've rectified that issue. So you're all innocent until proven guilty, so I hereby find you innocent. Relax. And with that, as soon as, are you ready to proceed?
She's.
Okay. A slight delay until we're ready to go forward with the testimony. You may sit down, Mr. Macias. And we'll just sit here until K-Bucks informs us they've remedied the issue.
And Your Honor, thank you for addressing the issue.
What's that?